just us. We can have a donut if we need one, I guess.
Well, praise the Lord. We've been studying out of the book of 1 Samuel, and we've gotten up to chapter 28. And Saul has been rejected by God. He won't answer him through his prayers, through prophets, or anybody. And Saul begins and goes and seeks a witch. And this is, we're going to start reading in verse 7 in just a second of chapter 28. I thought it was interesting as we studied these things. You know, we started this thing in March of last year, or this year, and now it's October, the time when the witches come out, right? You know what I'm saying? And it just happened to fall during October. I thought it was fun to see what happens here, and also the fact that we can warn people about the dangers of witchcraft, because I really know that young people are attacked. Starting with early television and cartoons, they're attacked by the belief in witchcraft. Okay, so let's go and read this right now. It says, Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that has a familiar spirit, that I may go to inquire to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman that has a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on other garment, and he went and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring him up whom I shall name unto thee. The woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul has done, how he has cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall be no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Who shall I bring up? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. All right, I'm going to back up a little bit and we'll discuss some of these things. Now, this witch should have already been run out of the land, because Saul had run witches out of the land. And Saul went to her asking her to speak to something called a familiar spirit. And the familiar spirit is a word called ob, O-B. And an ob is a jar with water in it, or a vessel with water in it. And as the water moves, it speaks to you. Okay? It'd be no different than speaking out of a crystal ball. Now the word Endor, she's a witch from Endor, right?
Right.
And the word Endor means a fountain of a circle. So, I'm going to walk down here real quick. Last week I showed you this thing. This would be the orb that she might use. And she might play tricks on you. They would be a circle of water, like a fountain, and then she would have this orb in there, and she would speak to the orb, and it might change colors, like so. And as she would speak to this thing, the spirit Samuel would come forth and speak to her, right? Is that true?
Excuse me, Keith, what verse are you on? I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm on verse 7.
Okay.
The word familiar spirit is what I'm talking about. We always think of familiar spirit of like a cat or a pet or something that a witch might have with them, but that's not what this says. If you look up the word familiar spirit, it's one word, and it's ob. It means to mumble from a water skin. Okay? Now, let's continue to study this, though. Now, it was a capital crime to be involved in witchcraft. So, what does Saul do? Why does he seek a witch in the first place?
Because he wants to hear something.
He wants to hear something. God has not spoken to him.
Right.
Have you ever had God not speak to you? You feel like
Yes.
He's not speaking to you.
Yes. Dry places, yes.
And we can take it in our own hands, right? When God doesn't speak to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what He's done here. Now he disguises himself, and he asked her. It says divine for me in verse 8, right? Now the word divine here is kasam, Q-A-S-A-M, and it means determined by lot or magic spell. He says, create me a magic spell, speak to the Ab, and make the Ab bring forth whoever I shall call forth. And she became fearful. Now why was she fearful? Why was the witch fearful?
When he asked for Samuel?
Go ahead, Pastor.
Go ahead.
Well, I would think because she knew that he had the Spirit of God with him.
Yeah.
Do you think that she knew it was Saul?
I would think so, because who else would ask for Samuel? Well,
Yeah, I think she figures it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Let me pull this out right here. Let me read something to you. This is out of Wikipedia. That's the People's Encyclopedia. Not everything in the Wikipedia is true. You got to realize that too.
that's right.
Because there's a really nice article in Wikipedia about my grandfather, and his brother, but some of it's not true. So I know Wikipedia is not true all the time. But they do give you a wide variety of things. Now let me ask you something. She's going to call forth Samuel. Let's go ahead and read it first. Verse 12. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, and the Philistines make war against me. God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known to me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Wherefore then doest thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee? And it is become thine enemy. And it is become thine enemy. And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and hath given it to thy neighbor David. Because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee in the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hands of the Philistines. Okay, we're going to stop there. Okay, well, Saul promises this witch that she won't be harmed.
Right. But it does say she saw Samuel.
Well, that's what we're going to figure out here. We're going to pull this apart here.
Okay.
Okay. Verse 12 says the woman saw, right? Samuel. She looked and beheld and perceived Saul from the orb, from the Ab. She's seen him in the Ab.
Right.
Okay? Did Saul ever see Samuel at all? Look at the verses. The woman saw, verse 12. Saul asked her, What did you see? In verse 13. He didn't see it.
No.
She saw it.
Yes, but in my version on verse 15.
Yeah? Saul speaks to the thing speaks to her through the orb, the Ab.
Well, no, it said Samuel asked Saul.
Yeah, because Samuel's speaking from the Ab. Okay?
Okay.
Now, a few things. Let me read this thing out of the Wikipedia.
Okay.
It says the church fathers and some modern Christian writers have debated the theological issues raised in this text. The story of King Saul and the medium of Endor would appear at first sight to affirm that it is possible for humans to summon the spirits of the dead by magic. In the Septuagint, the woman is described as a ventriloquist.
Right.
You know the Septuagint is the Bible, right? Possibly reflecting the consistent views of Alexandrian translators concerning demons which exist not. However, Josephus appears to find the story completely credible. In the medieval book Glosses of the Bible, glosses meaning words of the Bible, suggests that the witch actually summoned was not the ghost of Samuel, but a demon taking shape or an illusion crafted by the witch. Martin Luther, who believed that the dead were unconscious, read that it was the devil's ghost. Whereas John Calvin, who did believe in the mortal soul, read that it was not the real Samuel, but a specter. Moralist denominations such as the Seventh-day Adventists generally teach that the story is an example of ancient witchcraft or sorcery from the Bible. Okay, I do not believe that the dead are in a location where you can call them up.
I agree.
In my Dake's Bible, Dake's has 9 proofs that this was not Samuel.
I agree.
Okay? God would not answer Saul by dreams or visions, by Urim or Thummim. Why would he allow Samuel, who's supposed to be a man of God, speak to him if God would not speak to him himself? Number 1. Number 2, it is clearly stated that Saul sought information from demons and not from God.
I agree.
He was not seeking God, he was seeking demonic power. Let's see, number 3. The Bible plainly teaches that communication with the dead can be demon spirits imitating real small stuff, imitating departed loved ones. And he's got several scriptures there. Number 4, it is commanded in scores of scriptures not to traffic with demons or seek communication with the dead. Therefore, God would not allow Samuel to communicate with him. Number 5, the seeming appearance of Samuel to the witch was simply the familiar spirit imitating and impersonating him. Remember, Samuel was an old man, he was dead, and he always wore a mantle. That's a really good, easy person to imitate.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Especially if you say, what did you see? He says, she said, I saw Elohim coming up out of the ground. Gods. Elohim. That's the word there. She saw Elohim. She's telling him she's seeing gods come up out of the earth. Red flag. Number 6, the demon spirit practically revealed his identity when he said Saul and his sons would be with him tomorrow. They got killed on the battlefield in the next couple of chapters, and they get to be with Samuel?
Nope.
Or a demon spirit?
Yeah.
Number 7, there is no record of God seeking to intercept the communications of demons and men. Saul inquired of a demon and was answered by one. That takes us sometimes off the wall, but it's good. Number 8, it is stated in 1 Chronicles 10 that Saul died in his previous sins and also for sinning against the word of the Lord, which forbade witches and trafficking with demons. That's found farther on when he gets killed. Number 9, the last one, Jesus taught that it was impossible for the dead to communicate with the living because there's a gigantic gulf in between them.
That's right.
Didn't Jesus say that?
Yeah.
So all the things you see about speaking to the dead or calling loved ones from the dead is a lie. Because there's a mighty gulf between heaven and hell, and the people that are in hell cannot gap, and the people that are in heaven can't even gap it without God calling them forth. Right?
Right. And even Paul said it in the New Testament, the presence out of this body is the presence of the Lord.
Yeah.
Right.
Jesus is the only one that can speak to the dead. Lazarus, and then when he led captivity captive in the fight for keys of death, hell, and the grave. He led captivity captive.
And who's got the keys?
Jesus.
Jesus got the keys.
Jesus got
You know? So there's a lot of things here. And last week I spoke a little bit about Harry Houdini and how that he followed Spiritism during his life, which means seances and stuff. But toward the end part of his life, he spent his entire life trying to prove them all wrong because he realized they're a bunch of charlatans. And I was reading a book called The Dangers of Spiritism, written in 1922. And it was a book that Harry Houdini endorsed. It was by a Christian. And man, he tells you some things that happened back in the 1920s, early 20s. And I was telling Joyce this morning that they use the John 3:16, that you must be born again, saying that everyone must come back on this earth and speak to people. That's how the mediums work. They actually use John 3:16 to back up their point.
Really?
And he said that anybody in the right mind can see that it's talking about coming to God as a little child. You know, and that's how it's not talking about spiritism. So what I'm getting at, though, is the dangers of witchcraft. Now, witchcraft, rebellion is witchcraft.
Yes.
Right?
Amen.
Now, let's go back to our text here, because I don't want to skip any of this stuff that I studied. Now, she didn't see any. She said she saw something, right? The gods coming out of the earth. Now, it says here that Saul perceived in verse 14 that it was Samuel.
Right.
It does not say that he saw Samuel.
Right.
It says he perceived it. That word perceived is yada. Yada means he had an understanding. He understood what she said, and he believed that it was a spirit. And that happens in seances too. The meetings will make you believe in something that's not true. Okay?
You know what I don't know if I've always, the way I've always kind of explained it, when you see like these people on TV, it's like, you know, demons know, they're checking you out. They know your history because they've been with you. They see you. So all they have to do is, demons have to just give you tidbits or give that person tidbits so that they could go ahead and just convince that person. It's not that it's their loved one, it's a demon that's speaking to
Right.
them.
The demons have been here before man.
Exactly.
They have been here since man has walked this earth. They know everything that's happened. I don't believe they know what's going to happen in the future.
I don't believe that either.
But they do know everything that's happened, and they can manipulate people to do things.
Exactly.
They do manipulate people
They
to do
do.
things.
And we have to realize that it's spiritual, and that's why when you listen, it was later in the book, in the Bible where it talks in Acts, and it was that little girl that was being able, she opened the door and she was able to speak to demons, and she was following Paul, and Paul finally got tired of it and delivered her.
And called her out, yeah.
And delivered her is really what he did. He delivered her from her chains of slavery. But it's hard for us to see that because we want something tangible. We don't realize that we need Jesus, and they just want something. Sorry.
Yes. Now, it says in verse 15, she asked, actually Saul was asked why he was disquieted. Why did he call Samuel? He says, I am sore distressed. The Philistines make war against me. God has departed from me and answers me no more. Therefore I've called on you, right? Now, he wants to know what to do.
Right.
Why do people consult horoscopes? I'll never forget one time when my dad got saved. My dad had two problems when he got saved. He got saved when I was about 9 years old. And I'll never forget it because he had an interesting thing happen to him. He was a bartender at night and worked in the Navy during the day. And when he got off from bartending one night, he had a brand new New Yorker, Chrysler. And he ran it through five trees, broke broke 4 of his ribs and was in the hospital for a long time. But what was interesting, when he got in that car accident, he woke up in the back seat covered with the bread of life. The little scriptures, the bread of life. My mother had a thing in the car.
I know.
And it exploded. And the only place in the car that you could live at after the accident was in the back seat in the floorboard. And that's where he was. And he was covered with Bible scriptures.
What a blessing.
And he went to church after that, but he didn't immediately get saved. He was struggling with something. And I remember one time, he come running down the stairs saying, I know what it is, I know what it is, I know what it is. And he ripped up a horoscope book. My dad used to consult the horoscope every day to see what was going to happen to him. And he realized it was wrong. And the other thing he realized was wrong was being addicted to dark shadows. What do you call it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He quit watching Dark Shadows, which was, what do you call those things?
Soap opera.
Soap opera. Yeah, I don't watch soap operas. Never have. Don't like soap operas. I don't even like the Dark Shadows one. I'm just awful. But people seek answers to the future through horoscopes, through Ouija boards, tarot cards, reading leaves, and the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
Should we look for the future?
No.
No.
What did Jesus say about the future? He said today, the eagle is good enough for today, right? You don't really have to worry about tomorrow if you have your mind set on Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Amen. Now, when Saul confronted the demon, how did the demon answer him? He answered him with a question. Look in verse 16.
Why do you consult me, now that the Lord has departed from you?
Why do you come to me when God's left you? And you know what? If you seek demons for answers, guess what you're going to get? Questions. You're not going to get answers, you're going to get questions. That's exactly what he questioned him. He said, why are you calling me? Right? Even the demons knew Saul was now an enemy of God. Right? Now the demons rub it in. Right? Verse 17. The demons rub it in. He reminds Saul of the prophecy given to him that the kingdom would be given to David. He tells Saul why in verse 18. Why is this kingdom being taken from you? You failed to obey the voice of God. You failed to destroy Amalek as God had said. Therefore it is your fault. And now for the doomsday prophecy. You will be delivered into the hand of the Philistines. You and your sons as well will be with me, with the Spirit that speaks tomorrow. And also, the armies of the host of Israel are going to fail. Let me also tell you something about else. It's just like we talked about my brother this morning. The devil wants to tell you the worst thing that's going to happen.
That's right.
He always tells you the worst thing that could happen. Like my brother. He could have been incarcerated. He could have, he could have get sent back home, which he did, but look at the outcome. You know what I'm saying? God gave him a car. God restored his family to him. That's something that I didn't ask for.
I know.
I didn't ask for that.
Isn't God amazing?
See, when you consult God, God gives you answers.
Amen.
If you consult demons, they give you questions, and you become confused. And God won't listen to you if you consult demons. So stay away from witchcraft. Okay? Now, next week, I've run out of time. We're going to finish this story. There's going to be a part 3 to this one, because next week we find that Saul's going to get to sit down and have dinner with this witch. Okay?
Amen.
So we're going to finish that lesson next week. And in the meantime, stay away from witchcraft. Preach against it.